Welcome back to the LP community. You've heard me talk a lot about the power of using data to solve your biggest problems. But what if the data you're looking at is only telling you half the story? What if your exception-based reporting solution has insights that could be the key to cracking your biggest cases? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that very topic with a true expert in the field. I am incredibly excited to welcome Kristin Hiner, the CEO and founder of Maven LP. Kristin is a powerhouse in our industry with a career that includes leading loss prevention teams at major retailers like Guess and Finish Line, and then serving as a product consultant for XBR, where she focused on the very technology we're discussing today. With a deep knowledge in both operations and technology, Kristin has a unique perspective on the intersection of data and human intuition. She's helping retailers find those nuggets of fraud that a standard report just can't catch. And she's here to share how you can do the same. Kristin, welcome to the community.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. And with your deep knowledge in loss prevention and your whole career path, what was the journey that took you from being in the corporate world, working in the loss prevention, to then the solution provider with XBR, and then finally into entrepreneurship? You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so working in the industry prior to moving into the vendor side of it, I was always fascinated by technology and loved understanding how everything worked. And that was an easy transition over into working for XBR, which was incredibly exciting. Understanding how everything worked, implementation, the background, but also having that retail experience made the customer impact so much more powerful when I would work with customers, because I understood their world, but I also understand the technology world. So I was able to help customers understand what they needed to do to be successful, and then how the vendors could interact with the customers to have these amazing implementations. And then about 5 years ago, I decided to kind of go out on my own. I saw that customers struggled with the day-to-day, how to run EBR, get really good results from it. And I wanted to work with customers to help them bridge that gap to get them there so that they could be the most successful they could be with the data.
So when you were thinking about, moving from XBR over to entrepreneurship, were you seeing certain fraud or things that were just getting missed by customers, and you wanted to take that next step and help them identify that fraud? Is there any specific cases where that might have happened to give you the gust to go?
Definitely, but I think it even comes down to the foundation of customers would get an EBR solution and then say, well, now what do I do with it? And they didn't understand. So part of it is getting them to understand what the power of the data. But my favorite topic to talk about with data is line void fraud, because everyone has it, and it can be so intricate and have so many different impacts that people don't understand enough about that to know sometimes what to look for. So that's my number one go-to that I love helping customers understand.
Okay, so you probably have a number of cases where you've got retailers come to you and said, we're missing some money, we don't know how, we just need some more help. And then you're like, let's start with line void fraud. And what does that kind of look like in terms of where do you go looking for the fraud, and what are some specific instances where you found some that was apparently obvious, or maybe it was just hidden? Can you go dig into that a little bit?
Absolutely. So, line void fraud can happen in a couple of ways. So, and I think with anything data related, it's not a siloed singular view. And there are multiple things that can happen, and there's multiple motivations, right? So you have individuals who are looking to pass off merchandise maybe to their friends, or the individuals who are looking to sell cash, or even a little bit more advanced than that are some of the organized retail crime rings that target particular types of retailers because of the street value of the items, and they will work in conjunction with the employees. So there's collusion happening with the employees to where they are doing it. And line voids is a great way to find that kind of fraud.
Okay, that's awesome. So knowing, line void fraud, are there other areas like employee discounts or, post voids? Is there other types of fraud that you're seeing happen commonly that are easily overlooked?
Absolutely. Canceled fraud, suspends, those are so much harder to find because there's a lot of operational reasons why you would do those type of transactions, right? There are reasons that you'll pull up an item, it gets canceled because the customer doesn't have the funds, or they've changed their mind, or they're doing a price check, or whatever they're doing. So you'll see these type of transactions occur. And if you're not well-versed in what your stores do and the data, it can be overwhelming because there is a tremendous amount that will come through. So you always want to look for indicators. So if you think about anything, you think about the line voids, there's indicators, right? So how do you find those different pieces? Like, what is it that tells you, hey, this is a cash theft versus a merch thing? So, there are things that you can look at with cancels. You can look at the registers open immediately after it says sales canceled because there's no drawer open with that. So when they cancel the sale, they sometimes have to either get the money in the register or get changed out of the register. So they'll do a no sale or they'll use their key. And those typically will show up in your data as a no sale. And then you can see a pattern where they cancel it, open the drawer, do whatever they're doing with the cash. So really understanding your business is key, right? Understanding where your theft is occurring is key. Is it credit cards? Is it cash? Is it line voids? There's just so many different things to look at. And I think for a lot of retailers, it's overwhelming because the amount of data is so large. And that's why the tagline for Maven is shrink your data. It is not data mining. It is taking this ginormous set of data and making it smaller into consumable bits. But those consumable bits have to make sense. So there has to be a reason why you're doing that to get a result, or you'll just send noise out to people.
Shrink your data. So it's not so much that you're taking the data and changing what the data is, but you're taking the data and producing those indicators, those KPIs, those metrics, and that's the shrinking of it. So you're taking the massive data and we're summarizing it and making it into a usable, actionable format so that we can actually take action on that. So that's a great point. And that's what a lot of this industry in terms of data management, right? The software side of things, and then loss prevention, that's what they should be doing, but not everybody knows or has the direction or guidance either from their vendor or their management. They need someone like Kristin Hiner at Maven LP to help them decode and decipher what it is that they need to do to get that information out of the system, as opposed to just looking at thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of lines and try to go, what does this all mean?
Exactly. I have worked with customers who have these amazing EBR solutions, and I'll say, show me how you're currently finding fraud. Let me run this report and put a spreadsheet. And I cry a little bit on the inside because their application can do what they need to without having to take those type of steps and spend that amount of time. Because it really is, kind of that speed to ROI. You don't have to spend a lot of time to find fraud cases. It's not, if you know what your data is, and you have to start at the bottom to get to the top. And what I mean by that is you have to look at the details of the data. What are the things in this that's an indicator that makes me want to go look at it? So with a line void, I'll see, and we'll use footwear as an example. A high item footwear has been voided off, and they leave on an accessory item, socks or whatever. And
right.
You see a pattern of that. So say you see a pattern of that and someone's done it 5 times in a month, but oh, by the way, they're all cash. So that tells me if this does turn out to be fraud, it's going to be a cash theft thing. If it's other tenders, that's telling me that, okay, this is most likely someone passing off. If I see that it's the same tender, i.e. the same debit card, which we see a lot, is I'm passing off to the same person. Is that an ORC person? Is it my friend? So you have to take all of there's so many factors into it, because when you see 20 pairs of shoes that have been line voided off and the video confirms that those shoes went out the door, that's not a simple hookup. That's not, hey, John, I'm going to hook you up with a pair of shoes because you like those kicks and you're like, I want to walk out with them. That's you on a mass level, getting shoes out of a business for free to be distributed in a way that's more organized. And you see that over and over. That's an easy assumption to make, that this is a much more organized thing and not just a simple, I'm hooking up my friend or taking the cash.
Yeah. So I guess there's two sides of this equation. So we need to go into the data and look for these instances of potential fraud. So a good EBR solution should be able to alert someone when something like that happens. So we have an instance like the example you've given of someone that came in, rang in these shoes, voided them, and left, the shoe polish on, which is only a $5 item for the $200 pair of shoes. And when you look at video, you see it walk out the door. So that's the first half. That's a detection. Then after that, clearly that person, that cashier, is complicit in this transaction, is part of the narrative of the theft. So now you've got to go in and look at that person and look at their history and try to uncover as much of that theft and fraud as you can. And so, talk about what that looks like in terms of, taking a case that's one instance of fraud and growing it based on the past behaviors of that individual.
Yeah, absolutely. And you take that a step further, because you want to know anytime anyone is doing that. So once you understand, at every business, you can take similar businesses that are similar on the face, but because they have different policies, they have different things that happen at their register, they're not all apples to apples. So this footwear company is not the same as that footwear company, because one may not allow certain type of transactions like cash refunds. So you're not going to find cash refund fraud because they don't have them. So they're going somewhere else to do that. Where are they going to? So you have to understand your business, how it operates, its policies, that kind of stuff. That's going to dictate the data you're going to look at. And then when you look at that data and you see these instances that you're able to confirm fraud, a lot of retailers, that's where they miss the configuration part when they get to the end of their EBR projects, is they set up alerts immediately, not knowing what the fraud is. Well, yeah, you want to use the automation piece and you want to have it push some of that out to you as much as possible, but you have to have that element of understanding initially of what that fraud looks like, build that. Then once you build out your system, then you're able to say, okay, this is a common way that we're seeing that people are stealing. So now I want to know, every time someone has this methodology and they've done it more than 3 times in the last month, or whatever your parameters, we're data interpreters, right? We're here to interpret the data. So the data is going to point us to the issue. And if you try to force it the other way, that is a hard miss sometimes, because you have to let it tell you what's happening, not what you think it should be. Because once you put your notions of what you think it will be, then you can miss things. So it has to be this thing where you, as a data interpreter, storyteller, listen to what the data is telling you and look at everything within it, because then it will start to tell you other stories. And it's those behaviors and those key pieces in that data that you take and go, well, wait a second, all of these line voids happened on a mobile device. Okay, so what's happening on these mobile devices? And you can just kind of like, it can really start to mushroom out from there. So you're just really understanding your data.
Okay. Yeah, and that's interesting, because there's a lot of in my past and working on the solutions side also, like you did on XBR, but for different organizations, they always had, you know, the predefined exception alert rules, and they weren't always the right fit for the customer. So that's a big point that you just made, is that not every business is the same, and each bit of fraud can be different based on the policies, processes, and practices of each organization. So for Maven LP, that's a big piece of the puzzle. Like going back 5 minutes in this conversation, where you're understanding the customer and looking at their policies and understanding how that fits into potential fraud, and then uncovering these types of fraud, which can uncover other types of fraud, and you get that snowball effect. So that's awesome. And one thing in my past, as a past product manager, one of the things we strive to do as in product is to listen to the customer, ask a question, and then just listen and understand their perspective first before trying to solution or create that query or that exception report. You want to understand how their business works, what their problems are that they've perceived, and then we can dig into it, and then, you know, obviously uncover big fraud. So do you have like a specific case maybe of recent time that where you went in looking for one thing, and then it grew into something much bigger, and you identified some fraud that they weren't even looking at, or something like that, where you had one purpose and then you came out with this giant case? Do you have a specific instance, without naming names or identifying anything, but like maybe some dollar values and something that would be exciting for the audience to hear about?
Yeah, so I had a case not that long ago with a retailer, and it was trying to understand where some of their fraud was. And so I looked at a couple of transactions. They looked unusual, and for the goal for looking for fraud. So you're always trying to test the waters. You don't want to overwhelm retailers with a lot of data, but you want to give them actionable things. So you want to be able to send things that are going to hopefully be fraud. And so, you know, we were having to play about with the data, found a couple that they did turn out to be fraud, but then it ended up being a much bigger, I thought it was a line void pass off case with employees. So it looked like employees were passing off merchandise to each other, and they were, but they were doing it on a large scale, which then indicated a much bigger issue, because it was not just passively to take home for my family members or whatever. It was a lot of shoes, a lot over a long period of time. And was very shocking to find that the majority of that location was involved in one way or the other, had some kind of involvement in it, but they were also just doing there were a lot of things that were happening in that location where employees were just very casual about stealing from that store with not a lot of concern, because they've been doing this elaborate fraud for so long that the easy stuff, like just walking out the door with it, just didn't even seem like a problem.
Wow. And so it sounds like that particular location had a culture of fraud. So it was more than just one person. So question on that location, did they have a store manager that was complicit in the fraud, or a new store manager, or someone that wasn't really looking at oversight, or did they not have one at that time?
A store manager that turned a blind eye.
Okay. Yeah. So because that's a big key to preventing fraud, is having great store managers in each location, because they're gonna keep their eye on the ball, and if somebody tries to throw a curveball, they're going to be right in there like a dirty shirt. So yeah,
they should be right.
They should be.
And unfortunately, and it's anything, but you know, in retail, you'll come across locations that have not the strongest managers, who either allow it to happen, or maybe suspect it but don't want to deal with it, or just honestly don't care. You know, some people just don't care. And so I think anytime you have a poor performing manager in a store that's not performing well, regardless of anything that you think is going on, it's never a good idea to leave a poor performing manager in a location, because the ripple effect, it allows for that type of stuff to happen, because there's no controls. Honestly, there's no enthusiasm for being there. So when you have a lack of controls in your store, it ends up in bad situations. A lot of times.
Yeah, so it's like enabling. It's like the parent that who has a misbehaved child in the grocery store, and you could see them trying to ignore the situation, and they're going to wait till it escalates, till it's too big and out of control. But if they deal with those small behaviors right away, then that kid will behave themselves appropriately. And just like in New York City, I don't know if you know this story, I think it was in the 80s, it was wrought with crime. People were jumping the turnstile on the subways, and so everybody was doing it, and there was crime all over the city. Murders were up. So the mayor at the time decided, instead of just putting more law enforcement against murders and all the other crime, we're going to start with just the people that jumped the turnstile. So they started charging people and fining people for doing that. And when they did that, all the other crimes dropped. So it's like, it's a great analogy. And it was, I was in a book that I read somewhere along the line, but yeah, it's very interesting that if you deal with the little crimes, because that perpetuates into the bigger ones. So you deal with the little ones, everything else disappears.
I
so
love
just
that example. Yeah. I've never heard that. I love that example.
Yeah. So, okay. So in having the great conversation, I love this conversation we got going on. For the LP professional watching, what's one actionable strategy or technique that they could go ahead and use to maybe improve their hit rate on exceptions, or find some fraud that they maybe didn't think about looking at? What's one little tip we can give those folks?
Have a person that really understands data, that is taking the time and understand that it is not you don't just turn it on and you find fraud. Does that happen? It happens, absolutely. You get a new solution, you've never had EBR, you turn it on, you're going to see all this fraud because you never stopped the fraud. But it's that continuous improvement in looking at the data, refining what you're looking at, and having a little bit of patience. You know, sometimes it can take a little bit of finagling with the data to get there, but it's really taking the time to look at it instead of saying, oh, well, no one is stealing, or this thing doesn't work, or I don't know what I'm doing. Find someone that does, and you may have someone in your organization that understands data, and it's having that person that can say, this set of transactions looks like fraud when this one doesn't. To the casual observer, they may look the same, but it's the behaviors, it's the things in it that when you look at, you say, that just does not look right. This warrants a little bit more investigation. And just having someone that really truly understands data, regardless if it's someone that you've had there, you hire an analyst, you outsource, whatever it is you do, someone that truly knows how to read that to give you the most effective view of what's happening in your locations.
Absolutely. And Maven LP would be a great outsource option for that particular challenge, is finding that data person. It's interesting too. We released a video, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago about the 3 people that you need in your organization. One was the seasoned LP professional, the law enforcement connection, and then the third was the data expert. So in any community, any loss prevention professional that wants to be serious and really take their career to the next level, having access to someone who really understands the data, if it's not yourself, is key to success, because they're going to help you uncover things that you otherwise might not. There's also the connection to the LP community. So one thing I know you've joined, and thank you for joining the LP community. That's a forum where folks that maybe don't have a data connection, or a person that's a good data person, could join the community and ask some questions, poke around, and maybe have a conversation with yourself. And who knows, maybe there would be a relationship happen there where you're working with them to help them really truly understand their data. But there's also a ton of materials there. And so in your experiences, what has community meant in the loss prevention world for not just your career as a loss prevention professional, but XBR, and also then as Maven LP and an entrepreneur?
So my network that I've cultivated for years now is so important, because to be able to pick up the phone and ask someone throughout all the years of, hey, I'm seeing this thing and maybe I don't understand it, or hey, I saw that you put something out there, I think I may have a solution for you. Having that LP community, it can be really tight. And I know a lot of the people now that I've known for a really long time that I still have contact and connections with. And you'll find that in a lot of LP professionals, there's this willingness and this openness to be able to talk about things. It's not always about working full time with the customer. It's about, hey, I have this thing and let's talk about it. And these conversations can happen organically, where I find that people in this industry do like to help each other, which is really nice, because, early on in my career, I had mentors and people that I talked to, and I've mentored individuals. And I think it's important to have conversations with people and to work with people, and, to be open, because we're all working for the same thing, right? We're all trying to combat this fraud, and be able to identify it. And you're only stronger by your network, right? You're only stronger by having people that you can rely on and lean on, and be that person for other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we all know that fraud can happen at your retail organization, at your store, and the folks that are committing that fraud might walk right across the street and commit the fraud at the other retailer.
Absolutely.
And so when we have a community and we share these experiences and challenges that we're facing in that protected loss prevention community area, whether you're getting on the phone and talking to somebody or you're logging into something like the LP community, you've got that opportunity to now share in a protected space. And then everyone on your street can potentially see it if everybody's a member of that community. So yeah, that's a very exciting thing for myself, and I think for the entire loss prevention community to be able to have that option. So now looking ahead, one thing that's interesting is, we're actively looking at how does AI influence a lot of this stuff, and how can loss prevention practitioners use AI in their roles, and what is the future of loss prevention going to look like? Because you got this AI thing over here, and you've got loss prevention over here. I mean, you're not going to see AI walking around a store watching individuals potentially shoplift, or how do you perceive AI in the future of loss prevention? Where do you see that going from your perspective?
I think it can only enhance what we're doing. There's a lot around AI is all good or all bad, and it's neither one. It's somewhere in that middle space. So it is understanding that it's only as good as what you put into it. I dabble around and play around with some things, and it's funny what the AI will kick back to me, where I'm like, yeah, it's not quite right. But I know it's not quite right because I know that from experience.
Right.
And it's understanding that with anything, it takes time, right? So it's going to get there. I think it's going to enhance what you do with the data. Because if you think about, if I could, what's in my brain in natural language, say, hey, I want to know all these things that happen, and these are these really specific things, and it's getting there. So because some of the companies are doing that, and they've already started to work on that piece. But to say what's in my brain, I want you to help me find all of these things, as opposed to having to do all these complex things. It's gonna enhance what people do. So it's gonna enhance the data, and I think people really should embrace it. It's here. It's gonna do things for people, and it's not perfect, but you know, it will do some good things if you give it a chance to just understand it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been using a lot of it lately to help organize my thoughts. So I do all the creative stuff, and then I feed AI. Here's what I want from you. Here are my thoughts. Can you organize and structure this for me? And it comes back, and it's perfectly organized and structured. So right now it is doing great job with that type of activity. But yeah, I think as things progress and you're able to use AI to train a model to show it what maybe line void fraud looks like, maybe it can help you speed up that bridge between, here I have your data, now I have uncovered all of this fraud.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
one thing I've talked about my entire career and with every customer is about efficiency and doing things quickly, but correct, right? Not doing it fast for the sake of doing it fast just to get it over with and done, but doing it well and doing it fast. And that's always something that I've done. So in the roles that I've had and the roles that I've helped with other retailers, doing the vendor side of it, is if you are spending, I would give an example to customers, hey, if you're looking at your data and you have 500 locations and you're looking at cash refunds, and you tell me it takes an analyst an entire day once a week to look at refunds, there is a faster, better way. You just haven't figured it out yet, right? There's nothing wrong with what you're doing, but there are ways to enhance things. And I think that embracing the technology all along the way, I mean, it's just, you have to be open to understanding that it's going to help you and not take away from you, because it's just going to make what you do more efficient. And I think that's the big piece that a lot of people don't see, is it gives an efficiency. And I do the same thing. I use AI to, like, I put a structure and then it pops in the back. I'm like, yes, it's great. that's what I wanted. And it just makes things a little bit easier. So, anything that can enhance what you're doing. I don't know why you wouldn't want to use it, right?
I know. A lot of people are afraid of it. And so
absolutely,
when I have those conversations with someone that's afraid of AI, I say, listen, in the like 50s, 60s, we had a transformation in assembly factories where they're putting cars together and someone's repetitively putting a bolt on or stretching fabric over something or whatever that is, and ended up with a lot of repetitive strain injury. So you'd have a dozen people, building this car on an assembly line, and then in came automation. So all of those people that were getting repetitive strain injuries were replaced by robots, but it didn't prevent or it didn't get rid of everyone. Now you have people that are more or less supervisors of the automation equipment when something goes wrong or they have to configure something, whatever that might be. Now they're standing back. The level of the work has taken a step up. I think what we're going through right now with AI is basically the same type of automation, but for the office worker. So all of that boring administrivia work that, help me organize this, help me schedule meetings, help me put the structure of this document together. Now you can just say, hey, here's my thoughts. Can you structure this for me? And boom, it does it. So I think that's the revolution we're going through right now. It's not that scary. It's going to take away all the things about managing and being in an office that people don't want to do, right? The stuff that's irritating. Let AI take care of it. I'm excited for it myself.
I am too. Yeah, I am too. Like I said, I play around with it, and it has its uses, and some of the tools are better than others, and it'll improve. The ones that are not great will just will fade away into the background.
Absolutely.
But it's like anything else. It's change, and change scares people, and this seems like a big change because people who we're used to being able to kind of do these tedious tasks, and coast can't because those tasks are being done by AI. And it's, it's kind of calling those people out, right? A little bit.
Right.
It's like, you're going to coast along, but now you can't. And so, time moves on, technology gets better, and things change.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? I think that is a great conversation, and we'll leave it there. So, but before we go, uh, what's the best way for any of the listeners or viewers of this video to reach out to you and talk directly with, the principal of Maven LP?
You can reach me through LinkedIn, which seems to be preferred. You can message me. You can send me an email. It's Kristin@mavenlp.com.
Or they could also join the LP
Make me
community and shoot you a direct message in the LP community. Awesome.
absolutely
Right on.
100%. Absolutely.
One last thing before you go. I'd like to ask you a favor. Can you help us spread the word? It doesn't cost you a thing, and it'll help us grow this channel and the LP community. Just hit the subscribe button below, click the thumbs up to like the video, and share this to everyone you know so we can get the word out and build a huge LP community. Thank you so much for watching and making it right to the end of this video. And we'll see you in the next one.